The Underdark is a gamer's favorite, but in my experience, it isn't given the treatment it truly deserves.
Now, I've been on many an Underdark campaign that feel like a dungeon crawl, or even worse, a journey to the center of the earth style campaign.
Don't do that to the Underdark and your players.
Your Underdark campaign needs atmosphere. It's 5 things to remember that add atmosphere to your Underdark campaign this week on the Dungeon Master's Dojo.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Dungeon Master's Dojo podcast. This is a show for game masters and players alike. We hope to bring you tips and tricks to elevate your game and develop the art of dungeon mastery. I'm your host, Louis Aponte, and these are your dungeon masters, Scott Labby and Bill Robotile. Let's enter the dojo and see what they have in store for us today. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Scott, turn the lights on.
Wow.
No, keep them off.
It's
It looks better this way.
He's going for atmosphere. He turned all the lights off.
Ambiance.
I got my dark vision on.
It's lose a tiefling. It's a little known fact.
Well, he's got to have some excuse for the horns.
Yeah, like kind of
Besides
like
just being an evil bastard.
little like satyr types horns there.
Satan-like? Yes, very much.
I've been known to be called Satan once or twice,
Yeah, it's
3 or 4 times.
your wife is right.
I'm not going to argue with her.
Smart boy.
Dear, if you're listening, you're right.
If I may, I'm pretty excited. We're about a week out from our February thing. By the time people listen to this, though, we would have already gone and come back and been on, probably completed our first of many liver detoxifying regimens. But it's
Now, we're referring to our week-long that we've mentioned
Yes.
many a time. Our week-long has become a recording session now.
it'll be the last one.
Yes.
Though, because we have all sorts of changes. Like next year when we go away, it'll be our traditional week long, which is pretty exciting. So we'll be back, with the guys hanging out.
No recording, just gaming.
Just gaming.
Gaming, eating, and drinking. Not
Drinking.
necessarily in that order.
And watching Lou make an ass of himself. Yeah.
I don't make an ass of myself.
And
Notice the pause.
yeah, Rhodey Sin will probably fall off something, as is tradition. He's been falling off shit for the past 15 years.
I've seen him
while
lie
at
on the
Ghetto-
floor and still fell off.
Yes, he fell off the floor, which
Yes.
is a feat. Wrap your head around that one. Yeah, you have to actually see it. It's hard to describe, but he is
I'll give you a hint. Stairs were nearby.
yeah.
That's because you're a lion.
Yeah, we've
Inside jokes. Love it.
yeah, the Rhodey Sin experience is something that we are fortunate enough to have for a long time. A long time. Yeah. And hopefully many more. But you got a little taste of Rhodey Sin on an Acorn's journey. We have a new something coming up that we're going to record.
We do?
We do. We're going to record the first of what is going to be a trilogy the week we're away, and then we're going to continue that out.
I'm sure it's going to be a jewel of a time.
It's going to be fun, and we have some of the players that you're used to, and we have some that you're not.
New voices.
New voices. Yes, we're
And one or two new players.
one novice player and one brand spanking new player, like fresh out of the packaging.
Yeah, we can't return her.
We can't. Yeah, we don't. We don't want to.
No.
Either. Yes.
Either one of them.
Either one of them. Yeah, we have. I don't know how this happened. We have somehow convinced girls to play D&D with us. Something I haven't been able to accomplish in 40 years of gaming.
And it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing that you were able to get a yes out of one of them just because of the way you asked initially.
Yeah. Before you ask a question of someone, I always ask it over and over in your mind a few times and then out loud just to hear how it sounds.
So how did this conversation go in the beginning?
I got a look from the passenger seat. Hey, I just texted this. And I went,
yeah.
You did what?
I was, yeah, when he said that, I was like, oh, yeah.
Do you know that has more than one meaning? Well, please continue.
Well, we were on our way back from recording an Acorn's Journey, a DMD story, and we were talking about what we were going to do next. And we were like, let's do another one because this was really fun, but let's do something a little bit different so that our listeners can kind of travel with us throughout our homebrew world, Hymerin. Like we went to the Wilderin,
right,
and showed you the Wilderin, and we hope you had a good time there. The atmosphere there is pretty chill, and the wine's good. So we wanted to go take y'all somewhere different, another part of Hymerin. So we decided we were going to do that, and then I said, why don't we mix it up a little bit as far as like players go, because I know a couple folks that I've known for a long time that I'm extremely fond of, and one of them has just started playing D&D, and that's my good friend Chelsea, who I've known for a long time. She's a wonderful kid, and she's going to be awesome, and you guys are going to love her too. And then I said, you know what? You know who'd be awesome? My friend Nova. You can check Nova out over at Finding Nova on the TikTok.
Finding that Nova.
Finding that Nova on the TikTok. So I said, Bill, I'm gonna reach out to my friend Nova. She's awesome. You're gonna love her just like I do. I think she's wonderful.
He goes, I'm gonna text her right now. So go ahead and do that.
So I sent a text, and it said, "Hey, weird question. Have you ever done any role playing before?" I said, "Well, this is what I texted her, Bill." And
I almost went off the road.
He looked at me while he was driving, and I'm thinking, you need to put your eyes on the road. And I was like, oh.
It's just that has more than one meaning, you know. And he goes,
so
and it was this blank stare, and I actually seen the light bulb go off above his head.
So I said like D&D and stuff.
Quickly texted a second text.
And Nova said no, but I'm willing to try. So she's going to join us, and it's going to be awesome, and it's going to be a really good time. So you'll get to meet Chelsea and Nova, which is cool. And Lewis will still be with us, and so will Bill and Frank Wieden, and
a few other voices.
Like our buddy Jared and Marcus. Marcus was supposed to be in an Acorn's Journey, but he had some stuff come up, so he wasn't able to. But you can listen to Marcus and the rest of the Acorn's Journey cast on the Battle for Birch Grove, which is like a prequel. That was all of our practice sessions to get people.
We're still trying to figure out what we're doing. Yeah,
and so Lou has been editing that, and Frank Wieden is going to add the mastery of his, sound effects and everything, and it'll be a good time. And that's going to air. It's like a 6-episode run after an Acorn's Journey.
Yes.
And then we're going to start a new a trilogy. And a little bit later, Ben, Madry fame, is going to go ahead and join us all over again. So I'm pretty excited about that. And there's going to be like more stuff, and y'all get to meet everybody before we launch.
Yeah, there'll be a few introductory things that we'll do. So.
Yeah. And you can also be entertained by me trying to use the right pronouns with Nova, who I've already botched a bunch of times now, but I'm trying really hard, and I'm bad at this. And Nova's very understanding because she knows I'm old. They know I'm old. But go check out Finding Nova.
Well, the good part is you're gonna soften it because I have no hope whatsoever.
But we're gonna have.
I'm too old to be following that kind of stuff.
We're gonna have a good time, and it's really cool because we have a bunch of veteran players of various years of experience, and we have a novice player who just got into D&D maybe like a year or so ago.
Right.
And Nova, who's brand new to D&D and everything, brand new to the role playing and
TTRPG role playing.
Yeah. It's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a well-rounded table.
He still turns red when we bring that subject up.
I was just about to. I saw his face with flush. I was like, "Oh, here it goes."
I've got a big mouth. My foot always ends up in. It seems, but fortunately, the people who know me are well aware of my uncanny ability to put my foot in my mouth, and are tolerant of it, and actually
They find it endearing.
have a little fun with it.
Oh yeah.
So that's the story. So we're talking about the Underdark today, and it's been a long time coming, right? We've been doing this almost. It's been like, are we on our third year?
I think we're just starting our third year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
we're coming up on our 3rd year anniversary. Yeah.
okay, and then that means like the next year is 4. That's how
Yes.
Numbers
Something like
go,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so
how
yeah,
numbers work.
yeah,
Yes.
it's been it's
we-
been
We started May or June of 2020.
June 2020.
June. Well, we started June 8th, but our first episode aired June
You're right.
21st.
Yeah. So yeah, like 3 years, and we haven't really talked much about the Underdark, so it's a long time coming.
It's because it's scary.
It's scary, right? But it's this thing that's like fascinating.
When
To
I say
gamers.
when I say scary, I don't mean it's. Well, it can be. It should be spooky scary, but I think it's for a lot of DMs, it's daunting.
It's
Scary.
very daunting because it's not something you should just jump into like, hey, I'm going to do an Underdark campaign. You need to. It's very different than running like a Lord of the Rings style hex crawl type of game. It's almost like a rite of passage for DMs and players alike, right? Every gamer's got their own bucket list, but there's some things that are always on it, right? Slaying a dragon, taking a ride on a Spelljammer, and certainly like journeying into the Underdark. Every DM wants to run an Underdark campaign. Every player wants to play in an Underdark campaign at some point in time, but it's atmosphere is what is like the difference between a meh kind of Underdark campaign and like a really, really good one. So atmosphere is one of those things that as a DM, you really need to give some consideration to.
It shouldn't be just a dungeon crawl in the dark.
Yeah, right. You know,
And unfortunately, that's how I see it run a lot of times.
a lot, you know, and certainly there's elements, right? There's some crossover elements to that, right? You got to have torches and other lighting sources, you know, you have to have supplies and there you're on an expedition, but really that's kind of where it ends, right? You're going deeper and deeper and like into the bowels of the world to a whole new place. And that's what you need to do to make it like really good and memorable is add atmosphere. And there's a few things that you can do to really ramp up that atmosphere to make it stand out from other campaigns.
Yeah, because like our first talking point is it's always dark.
Yeah, and you know it's implied in the name, right? You're
Yeah, you would think.
Underdark. You're underneath something, and it's dark. There's no light, or there shouldn't be like radiant light sources all over the place.
Right.
Yeah, you'll have your luminous mushrooms and stuff, but
Yeah,
they're not gonna. Well, maybe in certain cities, but for the most part, if you're just crawling through, it's dark because that just gives you.
And you don't realize what absolute darkness is like.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a little spelunking. If you've gone into caverns or stuff like that, inevitably they find one spot, they make everyone stand still, and they turn off the lights. And the darkness is absolute. Absolute. There is virtually no light source.
and when you're in absolute darkness and there's like no source of illumination, there is a feeling you get, and it's not a good one, right? So you want to make sure that feeling is conveyed to the players, that
Mhm.
unease, that I can't see what's coming. I can't see the little crawly, squiggly things. I don't know if there's something above me on the ceiling or on the wall next to me. I don't even know where the wall is or where the ceiling is. The only reason I know where the floor is because I'm standing on it right now. But I don't know.
But that
where
very
it
next
ends.
step.
Yeah.
And I think you got to keep in mind, just because you have dark vision doesn't mean you can see in total darkness.
No,
either.
because dark
Right.
vision
It's
is
just grays.
grays, and it also has to work on heat sources.
Yep.
Well, if you're underground, it's 56 degrees. And if there's nothing around throwing a heat source, your dark vision is not.
The only time I think the Underdark was, I'm not going to say the only time, but the only addition that I know that being in the Underdark wasn't too bad is when you had infravision in second edition.
Correct.
I don't know if it was in third or fourth because I didn't play those, but there is no more infravision.
No.
No. And infravision was very handy in settings like the Underdark. But, if you were a human,
Which
That-
that's probably
that
one of the
doesn't-
most played classes.
yeah, that
Or races.
erases
And
that.
to, and
that
to this
doesn't
day,
help.
it still is.
Yep.
To this day, over 50% of the people play humans because that's what they're familiar with.
Well, I think that's because they get that bonus feat right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's an incentive as
Mhm.
well. But a lot of people, what does an elf do? What is this? Especially your newer players may have a tendency to gravitate towards a human because that's what they know.
Yes.
And if you're wondering what it's like to be an elf, you can always listen to our episode on playing the races of the realms. And then
Nice-
I'll give you a little
nice
bit of
plug.
insight. Yeah, thank
Nice
you.
plug.
Not bad.
Yeah. Good job. You're talking about that sensation that you want to convey. Remember when you were a kid and you got sent to the attic or the cellar, and it was creepy. But as you were leaving with the lights off, it always felt like there was something
You were
right
rushing
behind you. And
behind
all of a
you.
sudden
Yeah.
you're step up the stairs and you don't know why you're running up or down the stairs to get out of the attic or out of the cellar. It's that feeling
All the
that,
time.
that you're trying to convey all the time. I was thinking about it. It's like, how can you describe that feeling? And I'm thinking about it. It's like, as a little kid, it's like I had to go down to the cellar and, do the laundry, and especially at night, and then the lights are off. You shut the lights off and you got to go up that last few stairs. It always felt like there was something right behind you. And
Or you're waiting for it to grab your ankle.
or
through the-
something.
Yeah, because at my house and my parents' house, the lights weren't at the bottom of the stairs. They were in the middle of the room.
Yeah,
So you had to go pull the string or do something.
exactly.
And it was never failed that I went down there after watching a horror movie.
Well, I remember when I was younger, you get that feeling. And finally, I was like, something? It's a cellar. I'm down here all the time. There's nothing here. So I ended up staying in the cellar that night. And my parents were like, why are you sleeping downstairs in the cellar? And it's like, because every time I go down there, it feels like something's watching me or going to chase me. And to be honest with you, I'm going to see what I can do about. So basically, I confronted my fears. I think I was maybe 11 or 12, and since that point on, I've never had that sensation again. Just spent the evening down there, and just like there's nothing down here. Spiders. That's about it. And I don't mind spiders. But yeah, it's always dark. Better hope someone has tremor sense.
Or devil sight.
Yeah. Well, tremor sense. Well, I was going to say more prevalent, but it's not.
No, they're not.
It's not. Neither one of them are. Yeah.
Nope. The other thing to remember, there's nothing green in the Underdark.
Yeah.
Yeah. No
No grass. No grassy fields.
no leaves, stuff like that. Trees.
Well, even your moss and lichen's going to be gray
Or
or
brownish.
brownish because there's
Or
no
pale
chlorophyll. It's all being done through chemical transference. It's not being done through chlorophyll, so there's no green.
So it conveys a very alien kind of feel and vibe, when there's no plant life anywhere.
Well, it's got to seem weird when you have infravision, dark vision. Now you got me stuck on infravision. Damn it! When you have dark vision and you're looking around and all you see is grays and various shades of grays, and then you light a torch and everything's still gray.
Yeah, the walls, the ceilings, the floor, the plant life, some of the the skittering things that are out there, all gray or
Gray, black,
or
brown.
pasty white.
And if it is a bright color, run the other way.
Yeah, it's probably not not going to be a good experience for you, if it's something brightly colored,
It's going to send your druid into fits.
Yeah, and what do you do as a druid?
What's
in that
edible? What do
case?
I recognize?
It's a whole new world.
Yep.
Yeah. And to kind of convey that like danger and stuff, having like pack handlers and hirelings with you on your expedition to carry the extra supplies and stuff, are fodder for the perils of the Underdark. Lost footing and someone, falling over the edge of a chasm or blundering into a nest of some stinging something or eating, something we don't know if it's good enough for healthy for you or dangerous or whatever. And then you find out and have like, one of your pack handlers die a horrible death.
But going back a little bit to what Bill said, like having a druid down there or even a ranger now, you got to remember they're taken out of their element. So they do not, or they may know things that are closer to the surface. But once you start getting deeper, they're lost. They're just as lost as everybody else.
Yeah.
I think your only hope for them is they have probably a better skill set to identify what is safe and what is not. Because they're going to, all right, well, I'm just going to take it, scratch the back of my hand a little bit, then rub it on there. And if it irritates it, okay, that's not something I want to touch, or little things like that. They're going to have the procedures down to determine whether or not it's going to be something that you can safely use for whatever or not.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as identifying them, they don't have a shot. They're going to be cataloging as they go for future reference.
Yep.
Not necessarily to bring back to the service, but to use later on because the Underdark's big.
Well, and not only that, it's very confining.
It is. Yeah, everywhere you go, it's a tunnel.
Yeah.
There are no fields. There are no expanses.
Well, you may hit your large caverns, but most of the time you're going to be in tunnels.
There's varying degrees of confinement,
Yep.
And you could have to traverse an area. You may have to squeeze in between a very small spaces and have that claustrophobic kind of feel. And you as a DM have to be able to convey that uneasy feeling. And then, what do you take a Goliath with you to the Underdark? They're probably not going to make it very far.
It seems like a great idea because they'd be able to hold back all the monsters until they don't fit anywhere.
Yeah. So what are your Underdark parties going to be made of primarily? I mean, would it make sense to have halflings, gnomes, elves, slender, smaller races, maybe tabaxi or whatever have you, but the big, humans may not be
You're
a
going to be
good
looking
choice.
for a lot of alternate
half-orcs.
routes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to keep that in mind too. There's varying levels of confinement.
Now, how do you handle that creeping through the little small spots, whether they're vertical or horizontal? You got to take your pack off and either tie it to your ankle and drag it behind you or push it in front of you and hope you don't push it over a cliff.
Yeah.
So how would you determine whether or not the player is claustrophobic?
I think it's probably a safe assumption that everybody's going to be claustrophobic to a point, varying degrees, is whether or not how they're going to handle that. And I think there would have to be some sort of role involved. Maybe
Well, the three that come to mind: wisdom, intelligence, or constitution.
But I would do the Constitution along with survival.
I don't think I'd do constitution because constitution is how well you can hold up to adversity. Right? This is a mental test.
I think it'd be wisdom all day.
And intelligence is what you do to learn new things, and wisdom is the retention. So you'd have to go, all right, this is something I've never tried. So as an intelligence saver, it's like, all right, I remember in my past having, this, that, and the other thing, and it's all been bad. So there's a wisdom save. So you have two different avenues, at least the way I look at it. I think I'm inclined more because it's a new experience to go with an intelligence save, but that's my preference. And then, okay, depending on how well they make or fail, then you can throw your survival in there to say, okay, I'm going to use my survival to get me through this, unless the fail is horrible. And then you have a situation where it's the smallest person in the party could get through there with no problem at all, and they absolutely refuse to do it. They refuse. They're sweating. They're sitting on their heels. They're rocking back and forth. They're crying. They're having an emotional breakdown because they will not go through that. And you don't know why. And there's a whole story to be, that the player or the game master can come up with. But I think I would go with intelligence. I mean, low DC. You got to keep them moving forward.
Yeah.
But hey, a 1 is a 1.
Just something to convey that sense of dread and uneasiness to them. Because once someone fails, now the party's got to, especially if they fail inside.
Yeah.
You have to coax them out, or get them to move forward. And that is, that could really build the tension, especially if you're in a situation where you're trying to escape from a scouting party of Drow or Duergar.
Yeah.
And it's like, we need to make it through this crevice. And
this is the only place we really can hide.
You just lost your shit.
Yeah.
You need to, the rest of us need to go through.
Your cleric's got her hand clamped over his mouth because he's ready to start screaming.
Yep.
The half-elf's got him by the ankle. And he's dragging him through.
There's that tension, and it's almost like the madness kind of thing in Call of Cthulhu.
Yes.
And I think it applies pretty well to this, not just in the confined areas, but throughout the entirety of the Underdark, because you're in this pitch black environment. What happens if you run out of torches or your torches get damp?
Yeah. Yeah. Or you have a lantern, or your lantern lasts considerably longer than your torch. What happens if it's broken?
Yeah.
It falls. You run out of oil.
Or you had to leave your pack behind you because it wouldn't fit through the hole with you and your oil's in the pack.
Yeah. Or it was separated from you for whatever, you had to escape real quick, or it fell off. Someone fell over a crevasse and reached out for you, grabbed your pack, and the only way to, and just basically peels it off your back, and they go over the edge. One of your carriers, they go over the edge with your backpack.
Yep. Full of essential gear, torches,
oil,
food,
healing
oil,
kits.
yeah, all that stuff. There's no allies that you're aware of,
right?
So it's something that the focus should always be on that sense of dread, that confinement, that that willpower to push forward, especially as you're squeezing yourself through these small crevices to try to, in hopes of getting somewhere bigger where you can like stand up and walk upright, but you don't know.
Right.
You
may be forced to crawl for the next 3 hours.
Yeah. And I would even say, there should be some sort of check to see if someone gets like lodged into like a crevice and they can't get out,
and
then that panic begins to ensue. And you got to get the whole party to kind of back up because it got so small. So now they have to wiggle their way through in reverse, and now other people are getting stuck in there and there's a lot of panic ensuing. And this character might be slowly like building up to a real moment where they just lose their shit.
Interesting application for acrobatics roll.
Yeah. Yeah.
For contortioning and stuff like that. And not everyone has a high acrobatics.
Right. Right. So it may come out to grabbing someone by the ankles and just tugging as hard as you can and hoping you don't mangle them up too bad while you're pulling them through.
And that goes to say, as we know, it's always dangerous, but to add something new and dangerous to the old.
Yeah, it's a new environment, right? So throw some new dangers in.
Yeah.
They're easy to come up with if you really think about it. You could be going through one of these smaller tunnels, and tunnels do collapse from time to time. You can either have it collapse behind them, just not immediately behind them, but just so they know that there's a sense of danger, have it happen at the beginning. So this way they can hear the rumble coming up, and now they know they have to keep going forward.
Or they've come to a Y or a spot where there's 2 or 3 different egresses.
Yep.
And as they get down, all of a sudden they hear the collapse behind them, but they don't know if it came from one of the other tunnels from that. So there's like, okay, do we even have a place to go? Or if we do, maybe the way we came in is blocked, and now we're forced to take one of those other pathways. So you can add that in. And keep in mind, you're not the only things trapped down here, too.
Yeah.
Some things you may be familiar with are now down here in the dark, scared, pissed off, hungry.
Yeah, stay away from the old standbys, orcs and goblins and stuff.
Yeah, it's done to death.
Dig through the monster manual for things that the player characters haven't encountered before, like an Umber Hulk or a Cave Fisher or
The Boulay.
the Boulay.
Yep.
The fungus people.
Yep, the myconids,
Yep.
is that what they're called? And really, and this all depends on what your table's comfortable with. Our table is pretty much anything goes, within reason.
For the most part.
But bring that sense of dread and danger to the table. The drow are not like other elves. They're mean,
Warlike.
yeah, they're vicious and convey that. And maybe the players come across an area that the drow have pretty much raised, and there's bodies strewn all over the place, and there's drow kind of torturing for fun and executing the rest of like the deep gnomes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Let them know that the drow and the Duergar are formidable and dangerous and sadistic and cruel and all sorts of bad things, so that they know, well, we don't want to get involved in a fight with them, and B, they're probably not going to take prisoners, and even if they do, we'd probably be better off dead.
Right. Well, I mean, both those races, species, however you want to call them, are very xenophobic. So if you're not one of us, you're not one of us. And you are either a resource or an impediment.
Yeah, and either way, it's going to suck for you.
It's going to suck
whether or
for
not
you
you're seen as
a
a
lot.
resource means, a life of servitude for the drow, and that's not good.
Nope.
Or
An impediment that needs to be removed.
or dead.
Yeah.
And probably not in a pleasant fashion.
That is never pleasant.
Yeah, there's varying degrees of unpleasantries, though. And the same goes for the animals that live down there. They're not warm and fuzzy. They're not kind. It's a dangerous place for them too. So
It's eat or be eaten.
yeah, you're probably going to be dealing with a lot of ambush predators that are just all of a sudden going to drop down from a ceiling, right? You're working with multiple dimensions too, just like with underwater stuff.
Yep.
So you really have to be on your alert, and taking out some pack handlers and watching them be devoured in front of the PCs is a good way to really convey that sense of danger. Like, this is, a bad idea. No matter how much we're getting paid, it's not enough.
At some point, your party should go, this wasn't worth it.
Yeah, we should leave Roy. Yeah, he was captured, or his expedition was lost, but I never really liked Roy all that much. I didn't like him enough to get eaten like, Bob the pack handler just did by that like cave fisher that ate him alive. That sucks. Let's go back home.
Right.
Or that flock of sturges.
Yeah, the sturgeon.
Sturges. I love Sturges.
Or even those even if you get into a big cave, the stalagmite creature, I forget what they're actually called.
Piercers. Is that what
Piercers.
they're-
Yeah, they're piercers. And you have them, I think they're envelopers as well.
And the cloakers.
Cloakers, yeah.
Cloakers and ropers.
Yep.
And I keep thinking of Three's Company, the ropers that
Yes.
live downstairs. Anybody over or under 30 won't know what the hell I'm talking about.
40.
But the other thing is the environment is alien to the surface of dwelling creatures.
Yeah, it's different. It's very, very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
Not just geographically, where you're constantly like in entombed in this rock, this stone, but it's everything operates kind of differently.
Well, there's no time scale. There is
Right.
no day and night.
Right.
And that's going to be huge because you're going to lose track of time.
Yeah.
Unless you have a means to do so, or your intelligence is giving you some kind of skill or ability to track time, you're going to have a difficult time figuring it out. So you're going to be traveling further than you think, longer than you think.
Or shorter.
Well, a lot of times it's the adrenaline is running. So it's the fight or flight
Right.
type deal that's running rampant through your system. Your adrenaline, every noise is a threat. The confusion's there, so time can slip by very,
will.
very quickly, and you're starting to run into the issue of exhaustion.
Yep.
And levels of exhaustion because they just went 18 hours straight. The game master knows this. Yeah, we're looking for a place. Okay, you're looking for a safe place to sleep. Is there anything chewing on you now? Nope. That's the safest place you found so far.
Yeah, and it's not to say, I meant to say this earlier, we're talking about really tight confined areas. For newer players, you don't have to put them in such tight confined areas. If your first time running this, you can put them in big cavernous areas that lead from one to another, but all those dangers are still going to be there.
Right.
Yeah.
Every single one of them and more because now there's more room for your predators to roam.
Yeah. The big ones.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Like your boulet.
your big spaces.
Yeah.
All right, something's eating so many things, and now it can't get down the
Yes.
tunnel, so it's stuck here, and it's going to eat everything that comes here because
Beholders.
beholders.
We got an episode on those too.
We do
Check it out.
Yep.
beholder kin as well.
Yep. And how do you communicate with the intelligent races?
There's
down in
very,
the Underdark?
very poor chance that you're going to speak the same race unless they've had spies or are doing some kind of trade with the surface.
And that very well may be, but when you run into that small contingent of soldiers, who's to say one of those are going to be able to speak your language?
Pretty slim.
Exactly.
Right. Maybe one of the higher ups.
Yep.
But the grunts,
Nope.
probably not.
Yeah. Language, culture, very different.
Oh yeah, you could be found by some drow. Let's say they're not really super hostile, but you could do something, not realizing you did something against their cultural beliefs, and now they just become super hostile.
Well, what about your mage over there? Oh, I can't understand. All right, I'm going to cast comprehend language.
Yeah.
And what do they see? A brand new party, and one of them's casting magic.
Yep. A bunch of magic gestures, and then it's like hostility.
Because they don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, you're casting in this tongue. While they cast that same spell, yes, their tongue is different.
Yep. And that's just the
gestures,
verbal.
yeah,
The
the gestures
the
are maybe
semantics
different,
of it, the material components are going to be different because you're dealing with different resources.
Yep.
So.
Gods are different,
Very different.
right? Lolth and all those others that they worship, very, very different. It's a hostile environment, so it breeds hostile cultures. It's dangerous. You have to be tough. You have to be strong. You have to be resilient.
Well, it's
And-
survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
And that's when
Right to the core of
yeah,
things.
when we first started talking about this, I was automatically thinking Dark Sun because it's survival.
Yeah.
You got to bring the right supplies with you. Just because the air is breathable or there's air doesn't mean it is breathable because it could be brimstone down there, sulfur,
Pockets of methane.
Yep,
Could be all kinds
anything.
of stuff.
So, you have to have, if you're going in with let's say a new group of people, take baby steps, walk in, find your way out. Keep going a little further every time because you want to keep your campaign or whatever your storyline going, but your end game is down further in the thing. This way they can remember, okay, now I got to bring this.
Mm-hmm.
Now I got to get that. But there's always something new that you don't know what you need.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, no, we haven't even discussed the fact that up towards the surface is very easily could be several water sources that flood tunnels.
Yep.
Yeah, and that certainly is an ever-present danger.
which leads to what's living in the water, what's in the water. I mean,
Mhm.
is the water itself safe?
Well, if it's again, I'm going to go to the bigger caverns, just because it's a pool of water. You can have an aboleth down there.
Yeah.
That means you're totally screwed if you go in that water. You now become a slave.
Yep.
Um,
It might just be a pool of acid
but
for all you know.
there's that.
I'm going to stick my hand in there and see if the water's safe. Okay, you now have one hand because the other one just basically burned off.
Yeah,
right to
most
the
of your
bone.
obscure creatures that are not used on a daily basis will
Mhm.
be down there.
And they're sinister.
Yep.
They're mean, they're nasty. And that's great because they should be.
Yeah.
It should be frightening all the time. Varying degrees of fright, from all out horror to something being terrifying. All the time. There should be some feeling of uneasiness and discomfort because it's such an alien environment.
That it is.
Even stuff like, what do I do? After a few battles, your armor is going to be all banged up. Your clothes are going to be torn. Where are you going to find a blacksmith? You can't go to the next city because you don't know where the next city is. And even if you did know where the next city was, there's no guarantee they're going to be nice at the next city.
Right. You're dealing with high humidity and water often. So all your metal's going to start rusting.
Rust monsters too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and if you're there long enough, you're going to come out looking like a totally different person, right? You're going to be pasty white. You're going to look like the player behind the character, pasty white gamer, the neck beard maybe, because you haven't shaved.
A little emaciated because you haven't eaten or drinking very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, because you have to ration your food a lot more.
Yep.
Unless, like I said, unless you start going down there in short trips, you know what to eat, what not to eat.
Right.
But
you have a chance of bringing some of that stuff up to the surface and testing it. And yeah, there's a lot to be considered. Just instead of just going, all right, I'm going to go from this hallway to that hallway, and I'm going to kill this monster. Do I find his lair? It's not that easy.
You got to remember, there's nothing to really muffle your sound of your movement.
Right.
Yep. It'll echo down the hallways, the
so
caverns,
things are always
the
going to know you're
corridors.
coming. There's no rain just to block out any of your sounds.
Yep.
There's a lot going on, and yes, you still may, with all the humidity and then the coolness of the place too. At places you may hit fog, so you can't see if there's ground in front of you sometimes.
Right.
So
All it takes is one little warm pocket somewhere for whatever reason,
Yep.
and next thing, like you said, you have fog, and you're always cold.
Yep.
You're always wet and cold. Well, not necessarily wet, but cold.
Yeah.
Now, once you get wet, you stay wet. There's no sun to dry you off. And it's not like you can start a fire. Where are you going to get firewood? There's no wood. And,
That's
and
just-
a pile of torches isn't going to do you much good. That's an hour, and that's not going to dry anybody off.
This is just the tip of the iceberg. We
Oh,
haven't
yeah.
talked about the other stuff.
there's a lot to the Underdark.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to talk about some more Underdark stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. This is fun. I like the Underdark.
And that's 5 things to remember that add atmosphere to your Underdark campaign. We'll see you next time in the dojo. That's going to conclude this episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Please subscribe to the podcast for more great content. If you'd like to hear a particular topic, you can reach us on Facebook at the Dungeon Masters Dojo, or you can drop us an email at thedungeonmastersdojo@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a good day.